Hey folks, welcome into NFL Daily. Here it's mock draft edition. We are counting you down from number 1 all the way down to number 32 here. We've got the mock draft analyst, Tom Downey, to break it all down with you. Cam Rogers with you as well. Tom, it's the offseason for many people out there. Of course, we have one game to be played, but everybody looking ahead to the draft.
Look, the Senior Bowl's already happening. It's draft season. That's what this is right now.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it, my friend. Picking number 1 overall are the Cleveland Browns. Death taxes and the Browns picking number one overall, Tom.
Kind of, sort of. The Browns have always been bad. They haven't actually had that many number 1 overall picks. Yeah, they had one last year, Myles Garrett, but they're in a unique situation for them where they can finally take a quarterback early. They've taken a bunch of quarterbacks, but they haven't been at that number 1 overall spot. They've been later in the draft, and I think they've kind of suffered because of it. Look, they've got other needs. They would love a corner. They would love a free safety. Joe Thomas will not be there forever. Isaiah Crowell's a free agent, but you see very few free agents, a lot of cap space. They can go a lot of different directions, but as things sit right now, Cam, they've got to get a quarterback. Because as much as I like DeShone Kizer, I don't think he's a great fit in Cleveland. And at number 1 overall, you have a chance to get your guy. Something they haven't really been able to do fully. I think it's time for them to go get a quarterback at number 1.
One thing you'll notice, folks, and it's no surprise either, the worse the team, probably the more the cap space. It's really no surprise there that there's a bit of a correlation. So the Cleveland Browns at 0-16 in 2017, a good amount of cap space to play with in free agency. Number 1 overall, Tom, you have Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA.
I've watched quite a bit of Rosen, and I think he is the most, he is the most pro-ready quarterback in this year's draft. Now, you see the completion percentage, it's under 63%. I think that's a bit deceptive. Josh Rosen's receivers, how to put this nicely, were not great. They had a lot of drops. I've watched almost all of Rosen's game this year. On average, 11% of his passes were drops. Now, not all of those are perfect throws, but 11% could have or at least should have been caught by the wide receivers. So I think the completion percentage is a little bit lower. He really did carry a bad UCLA team, and I think he's got the good arm strength. He's accurate. He's got the moxie one in the pocket. He's pretty good at moving around the pocket as well. He's not a perfect prospect. There are some off-the-field worries that I think are a little bit overblown. But I think for Cleveland, if you want a quarterback who's ready to go right now, Josh Rosen is your guy.
All right, so the Cleveland Browns taking Josh Rosen at number 1 overall. Picking number 2 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants. They have a lot of needs, Tom.
And they also don't have a lot of money either. It's kind of tied up in spots like quarterback, where it's a huge need, but they got a lot of money going to Eli Manning, and that's a concern on the offensive line. Justin Puig and Weston Richburg are both free agents. Can they afford to bring back both of those guys? Now, in terms of the NFL draft process, you're probably not going to spend the number 2 overall pick on a guard. They actually could consider a linebacker because they've ignored that position for years, but new GM Dave Gettleman is not going to do that. But I think if you're number 2 in the Giants, you're probably not going to be up here for, in theory, a couple years at the very least. You should probably go get a quarterback while you can.
Absolutely, and picking at number 2 overall, according to you, the Giants will get Sam Darnold, quarterback out of USC, Tom.
I think the assumption when you see USC quarterback is, he's pretty much fully developed. You think of guys like Matt Barkley, Matt Leonard. That's actually not Sam Darnold. Darnold is still very, very raw as a prospect, and I think you need to do a lot of work with him to get him to become the best player that he can. He does have plenty of upside, maybe even more than a Josh Rosen, but he struggled with turnovers. He makes mistakes. I'm not a big fan of his motion. His footwork can kind of collapse at times. But in terms of fits with the New York Giants, he's a perfect fit. Sit him a year behind Eli Manning,
sure.
Let him learn, let him work on the technique side of things. I think he'd be a good fit there. He reminds me a little bit of Jameis Winston coming out because of the turnovers, more or less. He struggles with those, and that's a big, big concern for me.
And Sam Darnold, of course, will have the opportunity to develop a little bit underneath Eli Manning, as you said. For Josh Rosen, it's probably, all right, go try to get it done in Week 1, 2018.
And I think if the Giants take him, you still might end up seeing him sit a year and learn behind Eli Manning because I think they want to give Eli one more year.
Yep.
But I think you could see a scenario where you do see Rosen take over if he ends up going to the Giants for Eli Manning earlier than that. In terms of on-the-field play, as they sit right now, it's really not even close. It's Josh Rosen. Rosen has a first-round grade for me. Darnold is more of a round 2 grade.
Wow.
Darnold, he just makes so many mistakes. It's frustrating to watch. I think everything's there. We just haven't really seen it in a full year. We saw it a little bit last year and some this year. and his offensive line doesn't help many either, but Rosen is just a better player right now, even though Darnold does have really good upside.
The debate is on. Darnold or Rosen? Throw in your respective votes here. We'll be tracking them, ladies and gentlemen. Picking number 3 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Indianapolis Colts, 4-12 on the campaign this year. No Andrew Luck, and really the needs should kind of center on that offensive line and protecting Luck.
Well, the issue is they got needs everywhere. Offensive guard is a big need. Offensive tackle is a big need. Then you look on the defensive side of the ball. Inside linebacker remains a need. Cornerback remains a need. They invested a bunch of different picks and investments into the edge spot. Barkevius Mingo's a free agent. Jabal Sheard was okay. Same with John Simon. Both those guys don't carry the type of cap hits that would prevent you from going ahead and getting somebody bigger. You could also see them go halfback as well, because Frank Gore is very, very old, and to the point that I don't know how he's still doing it. He might not be human. I love Marlon Mack, but I don't know if the Colts are quite as high on him as I am.
All right, so you have the Colts getting Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State. He is a really big-time disruptor.
For me, I'm thinking 3 different prospects here. A guy like Bradley Chubb, a Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame, and Saquon Barkley. And in the end, it's very close. Both of them are really good players. They're both going to be top 10 on my board. But positional value does matter in the NFL. It's a lot harder to find a really, really good edge rusher than it is to find a really, really good guard or a running back. You can get solid starters at offensive guard and running back later in the draft, like they have maybe with Marlon Mack. You're not typically going to be able to find that type of player, a Bradley Chubb guy, later on in the draft. And we're talking about a guy with 20-plus tackles for loss and 10-plus sacks for 2 straight years. That's insane. That's truly insane.
Absolutely unbelievable prospect here, and he's at number 3, going to the Indianapolis Colts, according to Tom Downey. Picking at number 4 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns yet again, thanks to the Houston Texans.
As part of that Deshaun Watson trade, look, we showed you the Browns graphic earlier. We'll get to this one quickly. We gave them a quarterback, Cam, so obviously we're going to go in a different direction here.
All right, so the Cleveland Browns have a fair share of cap space, as you talked about, Tom. So let's get right to the next pick here for the Browns, Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back out of Alabama.
I also considered a guy like Saquon Barkley and maybe even a guy like Josh Jackson. But with Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think he can play corner, but I actually don't know if that's going to be his NFL spot or his best position. I think he might be better as a safety or a free safety. In the championship game for Alabama in particular, he played all over the field. He was lined up as almost an edge rusher, as a linebacker, as a strong safety, as a free safety, and as a nickel corner. He's a chess piece on defense and good at all those spots. I think if you take a guy like Fitzpatrick, I would put him at free safety, move Jabril Peppers down to strong safety. That's one hell of a safety duo for the Browns.
All right, so there's Minkah Fitzpatrick at number 4 overall. This is NFL Daily. Cam Rogers coming at you alongside Tom Downey. We're going through the mock draft here on this Wednesday evening. Folks, we are presented by Mizzen and Main. Fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will love. Comfortable.af is the website. Tom, you are indeed a big fan.
Oh, I absolutely am. My favorite one is my green one, which does not work on air, but it is a very comfortable shirt, and I'm known to fall asleep in it. Normally after a late night out, but, you know, it's very comfortable, which is okay.
Nothing like chilling with a little
I feel a lot
Mizzen
better
and
in the
Main.
morning when I wake up in that.
Comfortable.af is the website. Like I said, we're going through a mock draft, folks. Let's recap, if you're just tuning in, what we have so far. So Tom Downey's picks, 1 through 4. Josh Rosen to the Browns, Sam Darnold to the Giants, Bradley Chubb to the Colts, and Minkah Fitzpatrick at number 4, going to the Cleveland Browns. All right, so let's get into number 5. Picking number 5 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos. Some needs on the offensive line, and if they don't get a quarterback in free agency, a QB too.
I don't know if they're going to get that quarterback. I know that they want to give Paxton Lynch a chance, but every time he's been on the field, he's either A, gotten hurt, or B, not looked very good. And when you're a team like Denver, you're not actually rebuilding. Like, at least that's not the way they consider themselves. They think that they are close to being able to compete and make it back to the Super Bowl. So at that point, you can't wait forever for your quarterback to develop. It's not a draft and stash for 3 or 4 years. That's not where Denver's at. So quarterback remains the number 1 need. If they get one in free agency, I look at guard and inside linebacker. I think Roquan Smith and Quentin Nelson would be great fits in Denver.
All right, so you were assuming that they're not grabbing a quarterback in free agency. So with that, You have the Denver Broncos drafting one Baker Mayfield, quarterback out of Oklahoma.
Please call him by his proper name, QB1.
There you go.
I finalized this today, at least in my own mind. Baker Mayfield, I believe, is the #1 quarterback in this year's NFL draft. I know he's not the biggest guy, but he's accurate as all get out. His hand size checked out. He makes plays. And most importantly, I think more than any other quarterback in this year's class, he elevated the play of those around him. That is how you know you've got a good quarterback. I wasn't quite as bullish on Baker at the end of at this time last year. I'm like, hey, he had Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, Dede Westbrook. Maybe he's just a product of those players. And then this year, with pretty much all new guys save for Mark Andrews, he was even better. So Mayfield, to me, is a dynamic quarterback. I think he'd be a great fit in Denver. Even though he's undersized, I think he'll be able to get by despite that.
The Heisman Trophy winner, going #5 overall to the Denver Broncos, picking at #6 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Jets. And this is a really interesting situation with them. They have some good young pieces on defense, but the offense could do some spark plugs.
The Jets, I think, with the way this mock draft shook out, are not in an ideal spot because you would love to get them Baker Mayfield. Well, he's off the board now, or not protecting trades. They're obviously not going to go center in the top 10. Teams don't do that. Cornerback makes sense, but do they want a guy like Josh Jackson? Minka could have been a fit if he moves down to corner because they're not going to make him a safety after spending 2 picks early in last year's draft. Linebackers need because of free agency. Edge is kind of always a need because they don't really have that, but maybe they go in a different direction and they go, hey, who's the best player left on the board?
So with that, you're going with Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State.
I think it's rough for the Jets because you maybe don't want to spend a super high pick on a halfback. Teams don't always like to do that. But I think Barkley falls in the same vein of a Todd Gurley, of a Leonard Fournette, of Ezekiel Elliott, who's just going to become the focal point of your offense. And Barkley can be a 3-down NFL back. He's 5'11", 230, but he's a lot faster than his weight would otherwise indicate. He's kind of in the Fournette vein on that type. But my one main knock on him, he has a tendency to try and always bounce things out wide and try and make a 2-yard gain into a 20-yard gain and end up losing 2.
Yeah, so the problem is not taking your medicine on some of those runs
Exactly.
there. So there's Saquon Barkley at #6 overall to the Jets. Picking at #7 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in terms of the line of scrimmage, Tom, I think that's where the Buccaneers really struggled. Pass rushing and running the football.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that those are all big needs. The good news for the Bucs, for the most part, is there should be some guys available. You look at defensive end, and with Bradley Chubb off the board, you go,
Right.
You don't want to reach for a guy like Marcus Davenport or Harold Landry, so maybe move to the other side of the ball. You can look offensive line. Evan Smith is a free agent. J.R. Sweezy is just not good at all. And same with offensive tackle. Donovan Smith is not the answer at left tackle. But maybe the Bucs give him one more year, but I would love to get a new tackle for Tampa Bay. Could also go get a safety. I like Justin Evans a lot. They need one more guy, though.
All right, so you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Quentin Nelson, guard out of Notre Dame, a real road grader.
I think, look, it's weird to see a guard go in the top 10 for the most part because teams don't value that position that highly. But there's a real argument that Nelson is actually the best player in this year's draft. Like in terms of grading out not considering position, because he is as good as they come up front. He is a stud guard. You can put him at either spot. I wouldn't mind putting him at left guard. Maybe make Donovan Smith look a little bit better for the Bucs as well.
Absolutely.
Like you put a better guard there at the left guard. You run behind him. Helps Jameis Winston out too. Nelson maybe isn't the biggest positional need for Tampa Bay, but he's a great prospect, and the value is actually very good for a guard.
Quentin Nelson going #7 overall to the Buccaneers, selecting at #8 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Chicago Bears. And defense is really getting good. Had a great season in 2017. The offensive side leaving a lot to be desired, particularly at wide receiver.
Yeah, and I think corner is also a need because of free agency with guys like Kyle Fuller and Prince Amukamara. But I look at receiver, and it's just such a big need. They've got a bunch of nobodies out there. Kevin White, I think at this point it's pretty close to declaring him a full-fledged bust. They got guys like Dontrell Inman, Kendall Wright, and Josh Bellamy, all guys who are free agents. Ooh, Cam Meredith, like that's really going to change things up for Mitchell Trubisky.
He's not bad.
He's not a #1 receiver. So if I'm Chicago, my first priority this offseason is finding a way to get a really good receiver, if not two of them, for my young quarterback.
Hey, speaking of really good receivers, let's show this guy. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver out of Alabama. You have the Bears selecting him.
I don't think Ridley is truly the 8th best player in this year's draft. Now, he's going to get a first-round grade from me because I think he is the closest thing to a true number 1 wide receiver. And he's going to step up immediately for Chicago and make an impact. He is what we call a day 1 ready guy. Like, you put him on an NFL roster, and he's pretty much good to go. Like, he does need some work in areas, but he's also going to turn 24 in his first year. So that's why, in part, he's so pro-ready. He's kind of old.
Yeah.
Like, and I admit this, I am a bit of an ageist when it comes to the NFL draft because the difference between a 24-year-old receiver and a 21-year-old receiver, that's 3 years of your prime almost because you're going to have 3 years of having developed by the time you're 24, and that's 3 NFL years.
Means a lot.
It does mean a lot. So I like Ridley a lot. I'm still going to put him as a first-round player. I just don't know if he's truly worth the 8th overall pick. But for the Bears and the need they have at the position, it just makes sense.
All right, Ridley to the Chicago Bears. This is NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We are presented by Mizzen and Main Advanced Performance Fabric Shirts that you will love. Check them out, comfortable.af, and not just shirts. Talking about pants, sweaters, hats, so much more. Really fantastic products made right here in America. Let's get to a weigh-in here for the folks at home. Tom, we mentioned Baker Mayfield, and according to your pick, he is going to the Denver Broncos. But we want to ask the people out there which team is the best fit for Baker Mayfield. Perhaps there's a team below the Broncos that's better.
I do think Denver's a great fit, but I think the best fit is the New Orleans Saints. And I think the possibility of learning behind Drew Brees for a year, 2 years, whatever, would be absolutely perfect for Baker Mayfield because he actually reminds me of Drew Brees coming out of Purdue because Drew Brees actually ran it a lot as a college quarterback. Now, that's not who he is now,
Sure.
and that's not who Baker's going to be if he lasts that long as Brees has lasted. But I think the Saints would be the ideal fit for Baker Mayfield. I would also be stunned if they got him because it would require, A, something really bad on Baker's end, or B, the Saints moving up really far in the NFL draft.
Something's going to go down if Baker Mayfield gets drafted by the New Orleans Saints. No doubt about that. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey. Check me out at Mr. Rogers99. Follow him on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. All right, buddy, so we just did pick number 8, Calvin Ridley to the Chicago Bears. So picking number 9 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, we have, in air quotes, the San Francisco 49ers because, well, there's a coin flip that has to go down with the Niners and Raiders.
Yeah, and we don't know who's going to win. We'll find out that at the Combine, and maybe it'll flip, and we'll talk more about that later. But you look at the Niners, look at all that cap space. Like, ooh, that's fun.
That's money.
That's a lot of money right there. Now, a lot of it is going to go to Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's why you see quarterback as a need because Garoppolo is a free agent. Once he's signed, that's not going to be a need anymore, but we're still in the offseason. We haven't had any roster moves of that type. So for now, it's a need, but they're not going to go quarterback here. They're not going to go quarterback at 9 unless something really weird happens with Jimmy G, which I don't foresee happening. I look towards the secondary or halfback. Now, Barkley's off the board. I don't think they'll take him. But I think if you're the Niners, you want to keep building that defense a little bit and spend your free agency money on offense.
All right, so the San Francisco 49ers, there you see their needs. Tom, you have the Niners drafting Joshua Jackson, cornerback out of Iowa.
Producer Brett, take a drink because Josh Jackson has ball skills. And this is a former receiver at Iowa, and Josh Jackson, it shows that he was a former receiver. He had 18 pass breakups and 8 interceptions. Those are numbers you typically don't see. I'm also confused why teams kept throwing near him. It didn't really make sense. I think I need to watch a little bit more closely and go back and rewatch the film to figure out why they were throwing at Josh Jackson. But he has everything you want as a young prospect coming out in this day of age in the NFL.
Physical corner.
He's physical, he's long, he's lanky, he's got ball skills. Does need to add some weight to his frame, but I think he is a perfect fit for the Niners in that Seahawks-style defense, which loves those long and lanky corners.
You saw some great play by that secondary this year, by the way, Akello Witherspoon and K'Wan Williams as well. So
by the way, shameless self-plug, I almost never get second and third round picks right. I did get Akello Witherspoon to the 49ers.
Boom.
That was one of the rare non-first round picks you actually see mocked correctly.
All right, let's stay out west here. Selecting number 10 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Oakland Raiders. Again, we have a little star next to them. Of course, they have to do the coin flip with the San Francisco 49ers, but here are the Raiders.
I got into a Twitter debate the other day with a fan who told me the Raiders didn't need a linebacker because they were loaded. And he cited Bruce Irvin and Khalil Mack, which I understand where that's coming from, but that's an outside edge rusher linebacker. At inside linebacker, at the Mike, which is the middle linebacker, and the Will, which is the weak side linebacker, they've got Navarro Bowman and a bunch of guys no one has ever heard of. And Bowman's a free agent. So linebacker is a huge need for the Oakland Raiders, and Cam, it just so happens, there's a really good one on the board.
Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, his name's Roquan Smith out of Georgia.
I don't know if Smith falls this far, but I think that this is kind of Roquan Smith's floor because you don't always see linebackers go that early. And it's kind of a weird draft in that fashion where some of the best players are a halfback, a guard, and a linebacker, spots that typically aren't super highly valued in the NFL draft because they can get similar-ish players later on. But with the Raiders and Roquan Smith, I think it's a perfect fit. He's undersized, but he has great style and silent ability. He is a perfect weak side linebacker in the NFL. I think he's going to be a stud.
So we talked about the whole coin flip situation, and that'll settle itself out. So as of now, we got the Niners picking above the Raiders. Do these picks shift at all? Should we say the Raiders pick number 9?
Maybe a little bit. I think you could see both teams picking who the other one picks. So the Raiders could go Josh Jackson, and over the Niners could go Roquan Smith because they did spend high picks last year. Garyon Conley to Oakland and Reuben Foster to the Niners, but they have room for another one of those players.
Yeah.
And I think Smith and Foster has the potential to be the greatest linebacker duo in NFL history. Like that's how talented those guys are. Smith is not as good as Foster, but there's also not the shoulder concerns or the outfield stuff either.
All right, folks, throw in your comments. Who should the Raiders draft in round 1? We will track what you say here on Facebook Live. So there are the Raiders at number 10 overall. Picking at number 11 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Miami Dolphins. And Tom, well, could Baker Mayfield go to Miami? Who knows? He's going to have to fall.
They're going to have to move up to get him, I think, in the end. I think Miami, they're hoping, oh, man, can Quentin Nelson fall to us? Because that's exactly what they need. They don't have a whole lot going on right now at offensive guard. They're a little thin up there. Jermon Bushrod is a free agent. Anthony Steen is not that great. He's an RFA. Jesse Davis, Ted Larson are other guys on that roster. Like, they need one, if not 2 starters up front. So Nelson would be great, but he's not there right now. They could 100% go receiver if they lose Jarvis Landry. And if they do lose Jarvis Landry, I think a receiver to 11 is going to be a very popular mock draft pick.
Yep.
I do think that they find a way to work things out and then they get together and sing Kumbaya and kiss and make up and be fine long term, which gives them another option. They got to go somewhere else. I think linebacker is a really good fit for Miami in this particular draft class. Kiko Alonso is not that great. I hated the Lawrence Timmons signing at the time. Koamisi might never play again. He's also a free agent. And Roquan McMillan, I like him, but he needs to get healthy. And he missed all of this year.
So you have, speaking of linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker out of Virginia Tech, going to Miami.
Not a super household name, but I promise you by draft time he will be. Because Tremaine Edmonds is a freak athlete. He's bigger than most linebackers. He's 6'4", 250. He's a freak athlete. Oh, by the way, he's 19 years old.
He can't even legally drink yet.
And he can't even do that till a couple years from now. And he doesn't turn 20 till after the draft. He is a freak athlete for being 19 years old. I know he's raw, but this is a type of guy that NFL teams are going to fall in love with. They're going to say, oh my God, he's doing this at 19? Think how good he's going to be in 3 years. So, and when he's 22, 23, and is still on his rookie deal. So Tremaine Edmonds is going to continuously rise. I think as we get closer to the draft, he can play all 3 linebacker spots, I think. He is still raw, but upside is the limit with him. There is no upside to him. He is incredible. The limit to his upside, I should say.
Could end up being a very rich man, too, if he plays
he
well. With that age. All right, so there are the Dolphins at number 11. Picking number 12 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Cincinnati Bengals. Tom, offensive line, offensive line, offensive line.
They have such a massive need at the position. Center, Russell Bodine, a free agent, he's probably going to leave. They could spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick on that spot again. Offensive guard, Clint Bowling is really good. But DeAndre Smith, TJ Johnson, Trey Hopkins combo wasn't really working. And then most importantly at tackle, Cedric Abuya was a bust. Jake Fisher isn't any good. He also had surgery for an irregular heartbeat. I don't know what his future holds. Andre Smith is not good anymore. Just plain and simple. Eric Winston is a free agent as well. With that said, Cam, I have the sneaking suspicion that deep down, and one of the Bengals reporters mentioned this to me not that long ago, that the Bengals don't want to spend a 1st round pick on a lineman. They would rather spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick and go get somebody else in the 1st round.
That somebody else, according to you, is Derwin James, defensive back out of Florida State, Tom.
Derwin James is such a fascinating prospect because I love his upside. And I think there's upside is he could be the best defensive back, if not best player from this year's draft. That's how talented he is. But there is some Jabril Peppers to him in the sense that he didn't really have a position last year. He just kind of played wherever. And it kind of shows up in the box score. A couple tackles for loss, a sack, a couple picks, some pass breakups. I think he has the ability to be a true free safety, but he's not there yet, which I don't like seeing at a safety because how high of a pick do you want to spend on a box safety? Not that high. Now, I love James's upside. I think he fits what the Bengals are looking for. They have Sean Williams. They have George Iocca, but they reportedly want a mega playmaking safety, is what Jeff Hobson of the Bengals' own website said. Derwin James fits that mold, even if he's not there quite yet. So I like this pick for the Bengals, even though James does have some work to do as a prospect and as a player.
Derwin James going to the Bengals at number 12 overall. Let's summarize Tom Downey's picks so far, 1 through 12. Josh Rosen going to the Browns, Sam Darnold to the Giants, Bradley Chubb to the Colts, Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Browns, thanks to the Texans. And then 5 through 8 here, Baker Mayfield to the Broncos, Saquon Barkley to the Jets, Quentin Nelson to the Bucks, Calvin Ridley to the Bears, and then 9 through 12 here, Josh Jackson to the Niners, Roquan Smith to the 49ers, Tremaine Edmonds to the Miami Dolphins, and Derwin James to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is NFL Daily, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for tuning into this live program right here on Chat Sports Facebook. Cam Rogers coming at you alongside Tom Downey. We are mock drafting right now. We just wrapped up pick number 12, the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's get into pick number 13, ladies and gentlemen. Picking number 13 overall in the NFL draft are the Washington Redskins. And Tom, this is an interesting team here. First of all, they got to get their priorities straight with Kirk Cousins, and then outside of that, they got some needs.
What ends up happening to Kirk will determine what the Redskins do in the draft. And I think overall, they've actually got some pretty notable free agents, and the Redskins, they're going to be a tough team, I think, to mock until free agency starts. Then there's going to be a little bit more clarity. Kirk Cousins, a free agent. Top 3 linebackers, Zach Brown, Will Compton, Mason Foster, are all free agents. That's pretty rare. They do need another offensive guard. Receiver, also a big need because Terrell Pryor did not be the guy they were hoping he was going to be. So, but I think free agency will help clarify things. But as of right now, they got a lot of really good players about to hit the open market.
So you mentioned the linebacker problems there, a lot of free agents. So with that, you've got Rashaan Evans, linebacker out of Alabama, going to Washington.
I like Rashaan Evans a lot. I think he is a kind of your classic, really good Alabama linebacker. And there aren't really a lot of flaws in his game. It is a little tough to tell because he's surrounded by great talent.
Sure.
And that can help make him look a little bit better. Not the biggest guy, but he's a very talented linebacker. Whoever drafts him, I think is going to say, yeah, we can just start him right away. Like, we don't have to wait too long to get him going. He's going to be able to play early and often in his NFL career, and he's going to be a really good player once we get him going.
Rashaan Evans at number 13 overall to the Washington Redskins, selecting number 14 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Green Bay Packers, a 7-9 campaign in 2017. Not a lot of cap space, but could use some pieces on the offensive side at tight end, maybe wide receiver.
Yeah, I always have a tough time figuring out what Green Bay ends up doing. They often kind of go off in their own direction. Tight end is a big need because Martellus Bennett signing was a bust. Lance Kendricks could be cut. Richard Rodgers just not very good either. But with tight end, there's none worth taking this early. Guard, if you're going to replace Jahari Evans, is a need, but at 14, probably not. Receiver, they did resign Devontae Adams, but I'm pretty sure they're going to end up cutting Jordy Nelson or Randall Cobb. And then at cornerback, I know they spent a lot of picks, Kevin King, Quentin Rollins, Demarius Randall, but it is still a need. Those guys haven't played as well as teams would have hoped that they would have played.
The secondary had its fair share of issues this season, so with that, you have the Packers going with Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State, and according to Mel Kiper, the best corner in the class.
I am sized at times at certain positions, and cornerback is one of those spots. At 5'10", 190, he's just going to be at a disadvantage against some receivers. With that said, he does have some similarities, and he does remind me a little bit of Jordan Lewis, who did fare pretty well on the outside this year for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
I think that Ward can be an outside corner, but the size is why he's behind Josh Jackson. I don't know if the ball skills are quite the same as well. The size is a big concern for me, But I think he can be an outside corner or a really, really good nickel, which is a need for NFL teams. I like a lot of Denzel Ward. The size is a concern for me, though.
There are the Green Bay Packers selecting at number 14. Picking at number 15 in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Arizona Cardinals and their new head coach, Steve Wilks. So, Tom, a new regime here for Arizona. What do they have to get done?
Well, they got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. And I think Arizona is the type of team that you will see sign somebody in free agency and go draft somebody because they have nothing right now. Carson Palmer retired. Drew Stanton, Blaine Gabbert, Matt Barkley are all not good, and they're free agents. So you need a stopgap starter, and you need a franchise quarterback to groom. Beyond that, receiver, John Brown, Jaron Brown are free agents. They've been inconsistent at best. Larry Fitzgerald is going to retire at some point, you would think. They still need another corner. I did like what I saw out of Tremont Williams. He's a free agent. They need at least a third corner. Offensive guard, defensive line, something they need as well. But it starts and ends with quarterback.
So speaking of quarterbacks, you have one Josh Allen, perhaps the most polarizing player in this draft, going to the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, Josh Allen. He is, I think is the best way to describe him because he makes these throws that are like, oh my God, how did he do that? Like throws that Aaron Rodgers and like two other quarterbacks at most can make. Like he has unbelievable upside and ability. He also just has these plays where it's like, why are you throwing that? Or who are you throwing that to? He's wildly inconsistent. He makes great throws followed up by awful throw after awful throw. My general rule for quarterbacks is this. You got to complete 60% of your passes. If you don't, I don't want to draft you. Now, Josh Allen at 56? Look, you got to go back to like Brett Favre to find someone that bad who had success in the NFL. Is Josh Allen going to be the exception to that rule? I'm not going to put my money on it, but you bet some NFL team is because they love him. And I still have some tough times figuring out why.
All right, so the Arizona Cardinals selecting Josh Allen at number 15, selecting number 16 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft are the Baltimore Ravens, 9-7 in 2017, just missed out on the playoffs. The problem with them this year, Tom, they couldn't score any points.
And I look at wide receiver. Mike Wallace, a free agent. Rashad Perryman, well, he looks like a bust. Didn't like that pick at the time. Jeremy Maclin isn't the same Jeremy Maclin, I don't think, anymore. Tight end, they've spent picks on guys like Crockett Gilmore and Max Williams, but they've never really stepped up. Then you got Ben Watson as a free agent. Ryan Jensen's a free agent at center. Inside linebacker, you could use another guy to pair with C.J. Mosley. Offensive guard and offensive line overall had some major injuries. That was a big concern there. But I do think receiver, they got to get Joe Flacco more options, Cam.
And certainly bigger options at that. Cortland Sutton fits the bill.
Sutton is an interesting prospect because he's very, very raw, but he put up really good numbers because he was just bigger and faster than all the guys he played against.
Right.
So that's not always going to be the case in the NFL. He needs to improve as a route runner. That's one of my biggest knocks on Sutton. He has the upside and the athletic ability that you'd like to see, but there is some real bust potential if he doesn't improve that running ability because he's just not going to end up being all that great because he can't get open. And that's a big deal for some of these bigger receivers. They got open in college because they're just bigger and faster. In the NFL, that's not the case.
So there's Cortland Sutton, big-time wide receiver, going to the Baltimore Ravens at number 16. This is NFL Daily. Hey, folks, Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey. We are presented by Mizzen and Main, advanced performance fabric shirts that are fantastic products made right here in America. Check them out. Comfortable.af is the website. Tom, really a great website, too.
Absolutely. It's a perfect URL name for a site.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's awesome. So much more creative than www.mizzenandmain.
Yeah.
I like comfortable.af.
Comfortable.af because they are indeed comfortable as F. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Check him out on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Tom Downey, our mock draft analyst. So the Baltimore Ravens just picked in our mock draft. Let's get to number 17 overall. Selecting number 17 overall in the NFL draft will be the Los Angeles Chargers, Tom.
Safety in need. Trey Boston was actually pretty good. He was okay this year. He's a free agent, inside linebacker, remains in need. I think if they bring back Corey Toomer, he showed some ability at middle linebacker. I like Denzel Perryman. They might be okay if they re-sign those guys. Then we go to offensive tackle. Joe Barksdale, not that great. They spent some picks on a guard last year. Haven't really found, I think, a true left tackle to help protect Phillip Rivers. And then whoever decides to replace him once he's gone, That's why you could end up finding a quarterback be an option for the Chargers early on this year.
All right, so you have the first tackle going off the board here, Connor Williams out of Texas.
Connor Williams is a guy I think I'm going to like more than I think most people will. There are some concerns his arms are not going to be as long as you would like to see in an NFL tackle. Like Joe Thomas ended up doing okay there, though. He dealt with some injuries this year, wasn't as good as he was his sophomore year. But I think of the tackles in this year's class, and it's an iffy one. I think it's better than last year's, but I don't think it's that great. I think Williams has the ability to be the best left tackle, and I think that's what he's going to be in the NFL. I think he's going to be a darn good one, too, if he stays healthy.
6'5", 310. He's a big one at number 17 overall. Connor Williams going to the Chargers, selecting number 18 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Seattle Seahawks. And honestly, Tom, their offensive line became a punchline this year.
It's been one. They don't have enough options. They've got Dwayne Brown and Justin Britt. Those are, I think, their only true locked-in starters next year. So they could get two guards, a guard and a tackle and a guard, whatever they want to do there. They need options up front. And they've got some notable free agents. Richardson, Jimmy Graham. Who knows what's going to happen with guys like Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, either with injuries to Chancellor and Cliff Averill looming as well.
I see Luke Jokel, and I just laughed to myself, by the way.
I don't know why they gave him $8 million. I don't know what they saw in him.
So you have the Seahawks here selecting a tackle, Orlando Brown out of Oklahoma. He's a big boy.
I don't know about big fan of Orlando Brown, but I like Orlando Brown. And maybe the biggest concern in the end for him is that there are going to be doubts about his 'ability to handle speed. And if you have a tough time handling speed, as we've seen with guys like Eric Flowers, you're going to have a really rough time in the NFL. Orlando Brown is 6'7", 360. He's massive. Like, you don't find much bigger tackles than Orlando Brown. So with Orlando Brown, I think you send him to a team that can get by if he occasionally give up the pass rusher in the end and is able to run the ball, which is what Seattle wants to be deep down. There are some questions that maybe they want to move him to right tackle. The issue is he's never played right tackle. It's not as simple in the NFL as saying, hey, let's go ahead and move the left tackle to right tackle when you got to change all of your footwork. It's not that easy.
All right, so there's Orlando Brown going to the Seattle Seahawks at number 18 overall. Brandon chiming in. Brandon, appreciate the comment. A Los Angeles Chargers fan saying we need a defensive tackle to help out with the run. They did struggle on that front line.
Defensive tackle was one of the first options that I think was more left out there. I think that Corey Luigi was better this year. They could go get a defensive tackle. I think a guy like Maurice Hurst, Vita Vea, all those guys do make sense for LA, but I think offensive tackle is a little bit bigger need there for the Chargers, but it is definitely a need.
All right, we're rolling along here with the NFL mock draft. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey. Let's get to number 19 overall, the Dallas Cowboys, selecting number 19 in the 2018 NFL Draft. Tom, you are the host of the Cowboys Report. Where do we go here?
Well, I've already set my heart on one guy, and he happened to be available for the Cowboys on this pick, but we'll get to that in a second. If they lose DeMarcus Lawrence, all of a sudden edge is a massive need. But I look at two positions in particular. Not receiver. I think they go that in round 2. But I think they spend a second pick on receiver this year. But I'm looking at linebacker, especially if and or when Anthony Hitchens leaves. And then I'm looking at defensive tackle. Be it a 3 technique if they want to keep Malik Collins there, which I don't think that they should. I think he should stay at 3 technique and not the 1 technique. Or go out and get a nose guard and get a guy that makes life easier on your linebackers and can clog the lane.
Sure. All right, so you have one Vita Vea, defensive lineman out of Washington. Great defense out of Washington.
I love him. You will very rarely find a player like Vea who's able to be a 3-down nose guard. Those players don't really exist in the NFL. It's so tough to find a nose guard who weighs 340 pounds and can actually rush the passer. That's what Vea can do. And I think for the Cowboys in particular, he is a perfect fit. He can be, they run this Deacon defense that is kind of a 3 defensive down system, or 3 defensive down lineman system. Put him in at the nose guard, and he can still rush the passer. If Vita Vea is on the board, Dallas better sprint to the podium because I want him. I'm going to be real upset if they don't do it.
By the way, Tom, we have a Randy Gregory question in the comments section.
Just assume Gregory's done. Cowboys fans asked about him all the time. I would be quite surprised if we see Randy Gregory play next year. He needs to get his life in order first, and I don't think that's there yet.
All right, Timothy, appreciate the comment, sir. And folks, throw in your thoughts about who the Cowboys should draft in round 1. Let's move along here to number 20 overall. Selecting number 20 in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Detroit Lions.
Detroit, I think that they're looking at two main areas, assuming they do keep Ezekiel Ansah. If they don't, then they're going to have a big need at the defensive end spot. I'm looking at defensive tackle, where I like A'Shawn Robinson, but they need someone a little bit more disruptive. And then in terms of the first-round selection, I mean, how long have they been looking for a halfback to actually be a 1,000-yard guy? But they've been looking for that for a long time, and they've yet to find one.
So maybe this guy can help out. Darius Geis, running back out of LSU.
I'm a huge Saquon Barkley fan. Darius Geis is not that far behind him. I think he's very well-rounded as a runner. He's got good size, good speed, good strength, good vision. Maybe not incredible at any one of those areas, but he's pretty close to a well-rounded whole package halfback. Didn't do a ton in the passing game, but it was LSU, and they can't throw the ball anyway, so I'm not going to dock him too much there. Did deal with a knee injury. That's going to have to be checked out of the combine, make sure that he is okay there. But I think when I'm looking at a halfback for Detroit, Darius Geis makes perfect sense.
All right, so he is going to the Detroit Lions at number 20 overall. By the way, any comparisons to Leonard Fournette coming?
No, I don't. He's not the same just big bruiser as Fournette is. Now, you're going to see some people say, oh, LSU halfback, he's like Fournette. I don't think they're that similar type of runner.
All right, so at number 20, the Lions select Darius Geis, running back out of LSU. Let's summarize what we have so far. So number 1 overall, Josh Rosen to the Browns. And then at 2, Sam Darnold to the Giants. Number 3, Bradley Chubb to the Colts, and then Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Browns thanks to the Texans. And then 5 through 8 here, Baker Mayfield to the Broncos, and then Saquon Barkley and the Jets. Bucks get Quentin Nelson. The Bears snag Calvin Ridley, 9 through 12. The Niners draft Josh Jackson. The Raiders get Roquan Smith. 10 and 9 could be switched depending on a coin flip. The Miami Dolphins draft Tremaine Edmonds, and the Cincinnati Bengals get Derwin James. And then 13 through 16 now, the Redskins get Rashaan Evans. The Packers draft Denzel Ward. The Cardinals grab Josh Allen, the quarterback, and the Ravens get Courtland Sutton out of SMU at number 16. And then 17 through 20 here, Connor Williams goes to LA to play for the Chargers. The Seahawks grab Orlando Brown. The Cowboys get Vita Vea. And the Detroit Lions get Darius Geis at number 20. Let's get to number 21 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. And the Buffalo Bills will be selecting in this slot, Tom.
A lot of different routes they can go. Having back-to-back picks gives them the ammunition to move up if they want to go get a quarterback, maybe trade down, address some other areas of need. Cornerback's a need. They got to spend some picks there. But so is defensive tackle. And remember, Marcel Darius is now in Jacksonville. Adolphus Washington is, I don't know if he's actually going to be a long-term option for them. Kyle Williams is a free agent as well, and he's old. I think defensive tackle is a big need for the Bills.
All right, so the Bills are selecting number 21 and 22. Let's get to pick number 21 first, of course. You have Maurice Hurst, defensive lineman out of Michigan.
The biggest knock on Hurst, I think, is that he's a little undersized. 280 is not the typical size in today's NFL for a defensive tackle, but if you want a disruptive 3 technique, there you go. I mean, that is who Mo Hurst is. I think he'd be a good fit in Buffalo. He'd help with the pass rush. He'd help with the ground game. He's not Aaron Donald. Nobody is.
Right.
But he does have that same type of disruptive ability, just at a lesser version because, well, Aaron Donald's a freak.
All right, so Maurice Hurst at number 21 overall to the Buffalo Bills. Number 22 overall, again to the Buffalo Bills, thanks to the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Jackson, quarterback out of Louisville.
I think maybe the biggest reason why the Bills wouldn't go Lamar Jackson is they didn't like Tyrod Taylor for some reason. Maybe they wouldn't like Lamar Jackson either. But anyone who tries to tell you that Lamar Jackson needs to move to receiver, I would advise just ignoring them.
He doesn't like hearing that, by the way.
And why would he? It's very disrespectful to say, oh, Lamar Jackson, you need to go be a receiver. Oh, but Josh Allen, you're Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Certain NFL draft analysts have said, hey, Josh Allen is really good. Don't worry about the accuracy. Lamar Jackson, you're not accurate enough. You need to change positions. And I can't quite figure out why. Quite, by the way, is spelled W-H-I-T-E. Got it.
There you go. Hey,
so producer Brett's thinking there. It works better as a written joke.
By the way, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, I mean, you could put Lamar over Josh Allen in some regards.
I do have Lamar as a better prospect than Josh Allen. I mean, there's a real chance you can get Lamar Jackson in round 2, which I think would be a great selection. Maybe you see a team take one, a team like the Bills with an extra first-round pick to get that 5th-year option. But with Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's not the best pure thrower. But he's dynamic as all get out as a running back. Yeah. Like, you should use both. Like, don't just pigeonhole him into this only be a pocket passing quarterback. Let him use all of his ability. He truly is the closest thing we've seen to Mike Vick.
I was just actually going to ask you for a comp during the
thing.
broadcast, and there you go. I'm glad you brought it up right there. All right, so Lamar Jackson going to the Buffalo Bills at number 22 overall, selecting number 23 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Los Angeles Rams. What a season they had.
Yeah, really impressive year for LA, and I think for this year's offseason, they're going to focus on the defensive side of the ball. You got guys like Tremaine Johnson and Nikhil Roby-Coleman, two good corners who are free agents. If you lose one of those guys, you could see them spend a first-round pick on the position. Safety if they lose LaMarcus Joyner and maybe Cody Davis as well. But I am looking at edge rusher. Robert Quinn might not be back. He'll be easily cut. Has a big contract left.
Yeah.
Connor Barwin's a free agent. They don't have a true 3-4 edge rusher yet on their roster.
And perhaps this guy could fill that void. Harold Landry, edge rusher out of Boston College.
This is probably a really good example of a player who should have gone pro last year. He had 22 tackles for loss and 16.5 sacks. And instead of having that same level of ability, he unfortunately ended up regressing as a player. And that was a little bit disappointing. He just wasn't quite as good as he was last year. He's a good athlete. I have a little bit concerned about his bendy ability. Bend meaning being able to get around and under those offensive tackles like you have to be able to do. I like his ability. He's best in a scheme like the Rams, but his stock definitely dropped. Had he gone pro last year in a loaded edge rusher class, he might have been one of the first ones off the board behind guys like Myles Garrett and Derek Barnett. All
right, so you have the Rams defense getting a whole lot better with Harold Landry there at number 23 overall. Selecting number 24 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Carolina Panthers, a playoff team this past season, but they do have needs, especially on the outside.
I like James Bradbury, but he hasn't really replaced Josh Norman fully. And I also go look at receiver. You got Curtis Samuel and Devin Funchess. Okay, Devin Funchess stepped up late in the year. Curtis Samuel's a nice underneath slot guy. You still don't have a guy that takes advantage of Cam Newton's best attribute, his arm. You need a dynamic, deep threat at wide receiver. The good news for the Panthers, there's going to be guys on the board.
How about this guy here, Christian Kirk, wide receiver out of Texas A&M.
Also consider James Washington, but I think Kirk is just better. He offers value in the return game, and I think he's going to be faster than James Washington. There's some say he can only be a slot. I think he can play outside in that Ted Ginn type role. Let him go deep. Get the ball to him in space. The Panthers kind of seem to want to do at times on offense. He's going to be a dynamic playmaker. He'd be a really good fit, I think, with Cam Newton at quarterback.
If Andrew Norwell goes to another team, is guard a need?
Yes, guard is definitely a need. If they bring him back, they're fine. But if he walks, you could see them spend a pick on a guard. I think around this range, you could see in the first round a late run on guards if some guys show up in the combine and the pre-draft process.
All right, so Christian Kirk there at number 24 overall to the Carolina Panthers, selecting number 25 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Tennessee Titans, a playoff team this season. Where are the needs here, Tom?
The Titans, I think, are actually in a really good spot, and I blame a lot of their struggles on their head coach because offensive guard is a need, but only because Josh Klein's a free agent. I think at edge rusher, they do need some more help. Ryan Arakpo, Derek Morgan are fine, but they're easily cut. They really didn't get enough pressure overall. Kevin Dodd, unfortunately, looks a little bit like a bust, and that's a big concern for me on that. And I would like another corner as well. I think in terms of defensive line, you got to bring back Daquan Jones. They could also go wide receiver as well because Eric Decker wasn't quite as good. I do love Corey Davis, though, going forward. If they bring back Rashad Matthews, they're fine at that spot.
All right, so the Tennessee Titans, you said it, they're in good shape. They got some good pass rushers there, but you're going to get a edge rusher here for the Tennessee Titans, Tom. Marcus Davenport, edge rusher out of University of Texas, San Antonio.
I've heard good things coming out about him from the Senior Bowl, and I think this might end up being too low on Davenport. He is the athletic player with upside that NFL teams end up falling in love with. He checks in, we'll call him 6'6", 260. That's great size for a defensive player. I think he can be a 4-3 DE or 3-4 outside linebacker. He is raw overall, but he has all of the traits NFL teams want in an edge rusher. And what is frankly a down class, Davenport could be the second guy off the board among edge rushers this year. And he could even go top 15.
All right, there he is at number 25 overall, selecting number 26 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Atlanta Falcons, And you look at the center position, Alex Mack, they're solid there, but guard, that's where the problems are.
Guard is a bit of an issue, and I know that they like the younger that they've been playing this year. Wes Schweitzer, defensive tackle, also needed if Dontari Poe walks. I'd also monitor safety. I love Keanu Neal. You can replace Ricardo Allen. So I think for the Falcons, maybe they go receiver if they do lose Taylor Gabriel, but they do have Mohamed Sanu. So I am looking at offensive guard and safety for Atlanta in round 1 as we sit right now.
How about this prospect here, Tom? Billy Price, you have him going to the Falcons.
He can play center, but he can also play guard. And I'm a big fan of Billy Price, just like I was on Pat Elflein. I think both Elflein and Price might end up going a bit lower than I have them mocked, which is what happened for Elflein last year. I'm a big fan of Price, a 2-time captain, a versatile interior offensive lineman. Checks a nice little need there for the Atlanta Falcons, who are, by the way, in good shape in terms of roster construction. All
right, so he provides some versatility there for the offensive line. In Atlanta, the Falcons select number 26 overall, selecting number 27 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the New Orleans Saints. And what a resurgence by that defense this year.
And look, the defense looked great in long part because of Marshawn Lattimore. They upgraded the defense, but they're not done yet. But their biggest need is at quarterback, where, yes, folks, Drew Brees is a free agent.
Yep.
I think he'll re-sign, but even then, you got to look into the future at some point if you're the Saints. But on the defensive side of the ball, I still think defensive line is the biggest need. At defensive tackle, Nick Fairley was re-signed, but left because of a heart issue. I don't think he's ever going to come back. So that's one spot you got to truly properly fill. Alex Okafor stepped up as the number 2 edge rusher, but I don't think he's the long-term option. Same with Trey Hendrickson. So look for defensive line to be where the Saints target early.
All right, so speaking of the defensive line, Daron Payne out of Alabama going to the Saints.
Producer Brett's a big fan because he caught a touchdown pass, but that isn't a reflection of Payne's athletic ability. You don't find many 6'2", 310-pound linemen who have Payne's pure athletic ability. Now, he's not great at getting to the passer. Wasn't always his role within the Alabama scheme, though. I think he can be a solid 3-down player, but he's not going to be a Aaron Donald passer. That's not who he is, but he's going to be really good against the run, and he's going to get enough pressure to justify him being on the field for all 3 downs outside of when, he gets a breather, because the big guys need breaks too.
Of course, and the Saints are selecting number 27 overall there. Number 28 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers check in after finishing a 13-3 campaign. They have some needs on the defensive side, and a big knock on them is it's getting old on that side of the ball.
Yeah, look, the safety, they could cut Mike Mitchell, but at linebacker is the big need. Ryan Shazier might not play again. I thought that was a need anyway.
So you have Malik Jefferson, linebacker out of Texas, going to Pittsburgh.
Jefferson's going to be more highly regarded because of his athletic ability. He was not that good in his first 2 years. He did step up in his 3rd year, but he still misses some plays. He's still kind of raw. He's still closer to a pure athlete than he is a pure linebacker. But a team is going to fall in love with Jefferson, and he has the upside to justify a first-round pick. He could end up being really good.
All right, and there he is at number 28 overall, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Picking number 29 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft will be the Jacksonville Jaguars, and tight end. I mean, there's some holes there.
I think tight end is a big option for Jacksonville because Mercedes Lewis is older. There's really no one behind him, and the Jaguars, outside of quarterback, and I think they might take care of that in free agency, they're in pretty good shape as a roster overall, and I don't think they go guard this early either.
All right, they do have their problems on the offensive line, but you have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Mark Andrews, tight end out of Oklahoma.
I mean, he's almost like just a big receiver. He popped a lot watching Baker Mayfield film. Now, my one big knock on Mark Andrews, he makes some great plays. He's almost like a big receiver. He had some drops and some fumbles that kind of concerned me. And it was a little surprising. I have to watch a little bit more focus on Just Andrews, especially in terms of how he's a blocker. He did drop and fumble a little bit more than I'd like to see, but in a not as good as last year's tight end class, he makes a lot of plays.
All right, so there's Mark Andrews at number 29 overall, number 30 overall for the 2018 NFL Draft. You have the Minnesota Vikings selecting at this number, and look, a great defense this year, produced on the offensive side as well. They're sitting pretty, except the free agent kind of deal with quarterbacks, that's unique.
Yeah, they got to figure that out at quarterback, but in terms of NFL Draft, I'm looking at defensive tackle and cornerback, where, when Xavier Rhodes isn't on the field, they have some issues covering guys at corner. Terrence Newman is old. I don't know how much I trust Trey Waynes.
So you have the Vikings grabbing Isaiah Oliver, corner out of Colorado, a school that has produced some good ones.
Yeah, and I think Oliver got overshadowed by guys like Chidobe Awuzie, and this year he's kind of thrived as being the true number one guy. Teams didn't target him all that much. He has the good size-speed combo you want to see. Solid ball skills, not great ball skills, but will make plenty of plays on the ball. I think he'd be a really good fit in Minnesota. I do think they could look for a number 2 corner, especially if they don't really trust Trey Waynes quite yet.
All right, so Isaiah Oliver at number 30 overall, heading to Minneapolis to play for the Minnesota Vikings, selecting number 31 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. Well, we don't know, so we're going to say the Philadelphia Eagles here, Tom.
Yeah, so this is based on if the season ended today, so they would lose the tiebreaker, so no one panic. We're not projecting the Eagles to win. But I will say this for Philadelphia. Look, they've got one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. Like, they really don't have a lot of needs. It could allow them to look towards the future with this selection.
And you got Mike McGlinchey, tackle out of Notre Dame, good run blocker, has problems in pass protection, though.
It's the speed. The Georgia game keeps sticking out of my mind. I worry about him going up against actual speed guys. The good news is, unlike Orlando Brown, Mike McGlinchey has played both right tackle and left tackle, so he can make the switch back and forth if he needs to. I think he can be the backup swing tackle for a year. If Jason Peters leaves, he can start right away, move Lane Johnson to the left, put McGlinchey at right. I like this fit for him.
All right, so there is Mr. Mike McGlinchey going number 31 overall to the Eagles, and then finally selecting at number 32 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. You have the New England Patriots here, and you're looking at the defensive side.
I hate projecting for the Patriots because I never get their picks right because they're either a trade or just go rogue. That's what Bill Belichick does. So I'll kind of give them one, I think, the better guys left on the board, although he does have some serious concerns. But for the Patriots, linebacker, both at the edge spot and inside spot, is a big, big need for them.
You know, Tom, I've been seeing this name inside the top 10 a lot, the New England Patriots. You have them selecting Arden Key, edge rusher out of LSU.
A lot of concerns around Arden Key. He had a really good 2016, 11 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss, but he took some time off away from the team, came back really thin this year. There's been some buzz that he's got some off-the-field stuff going on, and maybe we get some of that leaked later, but with Arden Key, I think there's a lot of bust potential, but he's got the frame and the length to be a really good edge rusher, and I think a team in the first or second round is going to fall in love with him and say, let's take the risk. Let's see if we can get a 10-sack guy coming off the edge in the late first round.
All right, so there he is at number 32 overall. All right, Tom, let's summarize your entire NFL mock draft. We'll take our time with this as we go through 4x4x4. We'll start off with the top 4 here. Rosen, Darnold, Bradley Chubb, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Everybody's going to look at Darnold and Rosen.
Rosen is a better quarterback right now in terms of actual on-the-field play. I don't know what he does worse on the field than what Sam Darnold does. He's just better.
All right, the next slate of 4 here. Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Quentin Nelson, Calvin Ridley. Everybody's going to be like, all right, the Bears are getting their wideout.
They need one, and I think with Baker Mayfield, 5 is good value for the guy that I think is the best quarterback in this year's draft class, even though he is undersized.
All right, and then 9 through 12 here. You got Josh Jackson, Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, and Derwin James. What do you think about Josh Jackson going to the Niners?
I think it's a perfect fit. He's long, he's lean, he's got the size and the ball skills teams like out of their corners. I think it's a really good fit, almost as good a fit as Roquan Smith to Oakland.
All right, and by the way, Niners and Raiders have to do the coin flip, so their slots could change. Let's go to 13 through 16 here. The Baltimore Ravens, Tom, tell me, Courtland Sutton, can he fit there in the scheme?
I think he's a better fit alongside guys like Mike Wallace. He's not a burner deep threat. I think the Ravens need a bigger bodied receiver than a bunch of small, fast guys.
And then Josh Allen, 15.
Oh, he is so frustrating. He is either going to be the best quarterback in the NFL or he'll be out of the league very, very quickly. There's really no in between for him.
All right, 17 through 20 here, folks. Connor Williams, Orlando Brown, Vita Vea, and Darius Geis. Will the Lions actually go with a running back?
I think with Geis, he's a guy that could actually be a top 10 pick in terms of pure talent, ignoring positional value. At 20, it's a good fit for Detroit. They could also go defensive line.
All right, and then 21 through 24, you see a couple of Buffalo Bills there. One of them thanks to the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Jackson, going to Orchard Park.
I'm a big fan of Lamar Jackson. He deserves a shot as a quarterback. Let him be Lamar Jackson. Use his running ability. Even though there's concern with him, I want to see what he's got. I am cheering for him because he takes a lot of unnecessary, let's just call it trash talk.
Fair enough.
I don't know what else to call it.
And then 25 through 28 here, Marcus Davenport, Billy Price, Daron Payne, and Malik Jefferson. Jefferson is a tackling monster, Tom.
He is a very athletic player as well. I still think he needs some refinement. Same with Marcus Davenport. He's going to continue to rise, I think, in the pre-draft process. He is a really good athlete.
And then finally, 29 through 32, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Oliver, Mike McGlinchey, Arden Key. Does McGlinchey fall that far?
I actually am not going to have Mike McGlinchey in my top 3 offensive tackles. I am that concerned about his ability to hold up against speed off the edge. I do think, though, he'll find a spot in the NFL. I think Philadelphia is a perfect fit for him.
This has been NFL Daily. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Follow him on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. We're saying goodbye, so take care, everybody.